the J-Crown champion, Ultimo Dragon, with his manager, Sonny Onoo, versus WCW's Cruiserweight champion, Dean Malenko.
Is it Onoo? I don't really know. I mean, I know they just go for Sonny Onoo,
but it is said Sonny Onoo.
Onoo.
Yeah.
Sonny Onoo.
A bit like, what's his name? Who married Cher? Sonny Bono. Sonny Bono.
Yeah. I presume that's why they've gone for that.
Yeah, it's not Sonny Onoo's real name. He's an American-Japanese... performer is strong. But
the idea that he managed to get an out-of-court settlement with the WWE over a racial discrimination lawsuit, that must have opened the fucking Pandora's box,
didn't it?
Mustn't it?
Didn't it? It was against Warner, who were the owners of WCW. By that time, WCW had closed down. It was when he was released in November 1999. It's worth saying as well, Sonny Onoo didn't come from a wrestling background. So in the 70s, he'd been friends with...
a martial arts guy, isn't he?
He'd been friends with Eric Bischoff. They'd met through kickboxing. A lot of people in wrestling have more respect for sports that aren't wrestling, which I never quite understand, why you're here then. Why don't you go... Yeah. If you love kickboxing so much, Bischoff, why don't you put on a kickboxing pay-per-view? But they met through kickboxing, and when Bischoff was in charge of WCW, basically 20 years later, he hired Sonny Onoo as an off-camera international consultant. Basically, he was someone that Bischoff knew who spoke fluent Japanese, and so with the relationship that they'd started with New Japan, Sonny Onoo became the negotiator for talent exchange programs. It also meant that basically by 1995 they put him on television, and he became the mouthpiece for all of the Japanese wrestlers. The problem with that, for me, is that Sonny Onoo was a very stereotypical looking evil Japanese heel manager. He would cackle. He had elements of Mr. Fuji. He had elements of the worst excesses of Kai and Tai in the WWF, where he would be very much like, we're going to take that belt back to Japan, all this.
Shop, and maybe we buy WCW, then maybe we buy Iowa.
Wait a minute. Buy WCW. WCW is not for sale. Iowa, that might be another story. I don't know a whole lot about the state.
This is America. Everything's for sale.
Well, you Japanese people would know that, yes.
And it didn't really give any light or shade to the vast differences between Japanese performers who came over. They just all ended up being Sonny Onoo guys. And he was the focus of hatred of the audience. And so whether or not they were good guys or bad guys, they basically would get booed because they'd usually been paired with Sonny Onoo. When he was released in November 1999, which was a period after Bischoff had been removed from power, he, along with a number of African-American WCW wrestlers, low-level, guys like Bobby Walker and Hard Body Harrison, they launched a racial discussion.
Yes, please.
You're going to be hearing more about Hard Body Harrison, and let me tell you, it is not good. They launched a racial discrimination lawsuit against AOL Time Warner. He claimed wrongful dismissal. He said he was given a disrespectful gimmick, which you cannot argue that is not... I mean, it is just a very one-note, racially based gimmick. And he said that his final salary in his last year was only half of the average pay for a wrestler at that time. He was on $160,000 in 1999. And I think it seems incredible that you would go, I should be getting what wrestlers are getting. He just had to walk down to the ring and occasionally do some promos. I think there was a little bit there where you rely sometimes when you do go to court on people not understanding the differences in jobs within wrestling because nobody cares. And so he was able to say my pay was half of that of Hulk Hogan. And they were like, that doesn't seem right because you're all in the same company. They did settle the lawsuit out of court. I believe he did fairly well out of it. And he now lives modestly with his family, it says, and he owns XTC Auto in Mason City, Iowa. So he's doing fine. Occasionally he pops up on things. You see him still around. Never one of those iconic wrestling characters. I don't think anyone... I don't think he ever had a T-shirt. Let's put it that way.
Right. He seemed to be an all right talker, though, from the little sign of asides at the side of the...
I think, limited because of the role that they did put him in, which is you always have to be standing with a silent Japanese performer and saying, we're going to crush the Americans. And by, 1996, that seems very out of date. When Medusa comes down for her match against Akira Hakuto, and she's dressed in the Stars and Stripes bikini sort of get-up, looking like a sort of lady hacksaw Jim Duggan.
What an idea.
It just seems outdated, and it just seems like everyone's moved on. Everyone just wears black now. WCW have very much isolated that in this pay-per-view. They're like, we are moving towards the everybody just wears black era, and here it starts. We have Ultimo Dragon here again. In WCW, when he first came in, they called him Ultimate Dragon.
Right.
Because they felt that Ultimo Dragon, he's already Japanese. Let's not make him any more frightening.
Let's not confuse it with the Italian balladsman Ultimo, who sang the song 22nd of September, which I very like.
Is it also a bra manufacturer?
I think so, yeah. Ultima, the video game.
Yeah.
What's in the game?
You can see what WCW were thinking. They were like, but they did later, they would change it back when he came in later years. They would sort of respect that name. He also comes in alongside Sonny Onoo to that Japanese traditional music that they're so keen on. The very plinky-planky folk music. A bit like any American coming into a Japanese ring to the sound of bluegrass, just to sort of really go, they're not modern like you and I. They're inscrutable and unknowing, and all the other racial tropes from over the last 100 years.
Right now, let's get back to Eric. Oh, I beg your pardon, to Tony. You are confusing me a little. You are confusing me a little.
Oh, so sorry.
It makes it very hard for them to get over, even when you are Ultimo Dragon, literally a dragon man. That should be international.
But Ultimo Dragon, he kind of had a reputation of a man who just the belt collector. Which it's not a concept I sort of knew. A wonderful, quite nerdy kind of like the collector in a wrestler, like collecting the belts. It didn't seem quite as hardcore as it could be, but I really like the idea of someone just going around and going, this one. I've got loads of them now.
It has been done a few times in the years since, most recently by Austin Aries had a run as the belt collector, and Kenny Omega then did the belt collector, going to different continents, Mexico, and I think Vader in fact may have been the first person to hold 3 titles from 3 different continents simultaneously. So there's always been that slight thing. Again, I like it because it's bringing that sense of stats into wrestling, and also when Ultimo Dragon comes out and you're like, I don't know who he is, all you need to see is he's got 8 fucking belts.
He's probably good, isn't he?
Yeah, he's probably all right.
He's not made, unless he's made them himself. They're all right. He's probably all right at this.
It's a great match, this. It really is.
Yeah, really good.
It's funny how the crowd react to it. They are really, really into Dean Malenko. Hugely into Malenko. And as soon as Dragon does a move, no matter how spectacular, they all just go silent. And they're just like... Then Malenko will do a power slam, and the place will be on their feet. They'll be so excited. And Dragon will then do a move back, and they're just like, again, I'm opting out. I have no interest.
It's just like everything was covered in this match, and it was such a surprise. Because WCW was just like, right, get through some absolute dross, confusing, messy dross, and then we'll have a DDP match or something. And it's kind of Malenko had everything on the mat, and Ultimo had everything in the air, and it was just a beautiful mix. I really enjoyed this match.
Wasn't it?
It was really good.
There's a lot of mat wrestling on this as well, And Malenko is really interesting. I mean, almost at the time, he was seen as being one of the greatest wrestlers you could ever see. And it's a reputation that hasn't really stayed with him over the years. People have largely forgotten about the work of Dean Malenko and how over he was. He looks very much like, if you got 3 brothers who run a Greek restaurant near where you live, and he's the best looking one, but he's also the one who's psychotic. And there have been talks about... He goes
missing for a few days.
Yeah, exactly that. His personality changed after a car crash,
Yeah.
And there'd be sort of people going, we were there, we're just having a nice meal, and suddenly there was a massive crash, and he just pushed all of the glasses off the counter, and someone went to clear it up, and he just started kicking at them, making them get back. He's got that. They call him the Iceman at this point, and what he's got is very much the Stone Cold Steve Austin gimmick from the same source. So Austin had seen a documentary about a contract killer called the Iceman. Dean Malenko had just taken the name. And what he's got is he's got that sense of he doesn't have a gimmick, and not having a gimmick has become his great gimmick. Yeah. So he's the Iceman. He's this cold, unemotional machine who is going to take you apart, which he does beautifully.
Hi there, Pete Donaldson here from Wrestle Me. Just a quick note, please like the video that you're watching right now, but also subscribe as well. Also, head on over for our Christmas Wrestle Me shows. 12 special episodes of the Wrestle Me Patreon over at patreon.com/WrestleMe. We've got newsletters in there. We've got special Cardi Boys unboxing videos for some terrible WWE cards very soon as well. So join us over at patreon.com/WrestleMe for all of that. Good, be good. Merry Christmas!
Dragon comes on. He's got green mouth as well, which suggests that he's going to blow poison mist, but he never does. I mean, he seems to have done it backstage.
Very confusing. He's like, he went to blow it and just inhaled it. And just has to deal with the repercussions later.
I have been using poison mist recreationally for a number of years. Before his match, he's huffing his mist.
What would happen if you started doing green mist in like the crowd for WrestleMania, or on the bus to WrestleMania? I might do that. That'd be well funny.
Instead of saying thank you to anyone, you just blow mist in their face.
Burp at me like a cartoon.
It is sort of funny when I see mist now as well, and I see Muta doing it. I do sort of go, post-COVID, it does seem a little bit like this is either like a fun little part of the match or it's a death sentence. There's nothing in between. One of the moves that Dragon does in this is he bounces off with a moonsault off the second rope to the outside. A move which he invented and which was named after him. So it's the Asai moonsault. Later on, Rey Mysterio will perform an Asai moonsault off the very top rope to the outside, which I think is an unbelievable act of
fuck you
professional discourtesy. It really is terrible. Plus, it's not like you've done it and he goes, right, I've got to go out now and trump that. He's already done his Asai moonsault. And then you come out and you go, hey, he's probably in the car now.
Response,
watch this. I've won. There's a lovely bit where Dragon gets Malenko up for a tombstone, and Malenko reverses it, and then he does a jumping tombstone. And again, in 1996, a jumping tombstone is just... It's not a move you see at all frequently over the next 30 years. But just watching that, I mean, Malenko is on fire. Dragon hits a powerbomb. The crowd give it nothing. Malenko then gets a double underhook powerbomb. The crowd are like, this is the greatest thing ever. And it's really funny how they keep going from 0 to 100 to 0. They cannot bring themselves to go, this Japanese guy is brilliant. They have to go, I didn't like him and he's doing okay, so I won't boo and I won't cheer. And that can be a little bit of a sort of death reaction, really. You know, a Dragon goes up for a moonsault. Everyone loves a moonsault. Silence. But they explode when Malenko rolls away from it. They're just, the rolling. Fucking yes. That's what I want to see. The shame is the end. Malenko goes for a sort of cartwheel German suplex, and Dragon does a sort of underhook tiger suplex into a pinfall. Dragon is dead on the floor. Malenko gets up kicking the turnbuckle, and what it makes it look like is you jammy bastard. You didn't deserve to win this. And rather than get Dragon over and go, look, he is beating one of the best wrestlers in the world today, they have him be a bit cowardly. You know, Sonny Onoo jumped up on the apron, which he will do in every match he appears in. And you get a slight sort of sense of, stop messing about with this. It's, just let Dragon go out there and wrestle. At the end of this match, by winning the WCW Cruiserweight Championship, he would hold 10 titles at the same time, which would last only for a short period, 29th of December 96, and he would lose them at the January the 4th show in Tokyo 97.
All of them. Just every last one of them. What a terrible night.
It really was.
I've got nothing left. I've got nothing left.
Everyone talks about how the 10 titles is a record. For some reason, people don't include the fact that he was also, while he held those, the co-holder of the War 6-man tag team titles. And so he is the only man in history not just to hold 10 titles at once, but to hold 11. Typical of wrestling to sort of just go, there's a wrinkle in this. We haven't worked it out, and everyone just repeats the same thing.
We're the WCW of stats. We're going to get everything a little bit wrong.
A lot of his reputation stems from the fact that he is a huge world traveller. He takes his wrestling across the world. I saw on Cage Match he's had about, over the years, 26 matches in England. They include in Swindon, Doncaster, Orpington in Kent, Kidlington in Oxfordshire, Brigg in Lincolnshire, Salford in Somerset. He's performed at the Polyfield Community Centre in Bideford in Devon, the Churchdown Community Centre in Churchdown, Gloucestershire.
The man likes a cheap hotel. He just loves those little packets of biscuits.